Like I have a shot of him with a cheetal deer in the mouth where he's actually broken the head of the cheetal, so it looks like a giant rat. It's kind of scary looking, but that was one of the last documented shots of him with the wild kill. After that's all been that's the schedule where the
Yeah.
Red Bull from the village enters into the core area and gets killed by Noor, and then T-24 eats, and that shot, that opening shot, like that happened on that schedule.
Do you think the department, the action which the department is taking in terms of taking away these tigers which are being tagged with these human deaths? Okay, so Warren, thank you so much for joining in. And yeah, of course, it is a pleasure to meet you again, of course, virtually this time again. And a few weeks before we talked up, and now we are meeting again. So thank you so much again for joining in on the channel to our audience of Wild Travelon.
No, I'm happy to be here. Yeah. So hello to your audiences and thank you. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah.
You actually do a great interview, so I enjoy it.
Thank you so much. So yeah. Of course, I have taken podcasts and I've done podcasts with many of, different personalities, I would say, of wildlife and other thing. And of course, I'm still learning, like how should I improve while discussing with others. So yeah, I think that's my piece. But of course, from your side, it's always pleasure talking to you because you have so much vast experience in terms of wildlife, and I'm also a wildlife fanatic. So yeah, I love discussing about all those topics with someone of the same interest. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So before we start, I would like to give your introduction to our audience. And I would like to give that in Hindi and maybe a pinch of that in, I would say, English as well. So Warren एक वाइल्ड लाइफ फिल्म मेकर, डायरेक्टर एंड प्रोड्यूसर है, जिनकी फिल्मों को और आई वुड से जिनके काम को काफी ज्यादा अप्रिशिएट किया गया है इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे. ही हैज गॉट मल्टीपल अवार्ड्स, जिनको लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं बात कहूँ तो पैंडा अवार्ड एट वाइल्ड स्क्रीन, and इनकी मूवी टाइगर 24 was also the finalist at Jackson Wild, and of course best documentary award at Burbank International Film Festival. So आप इनकी मूवी टाइगर 24 को जो है नेटफ्लिक्स में अमेरिका एंड कनाडा में देख सकते हैं, एंड इंडिया में अगर आप देखना चाहते हैं तो दैट इज अवेलेबल ऑन Amazon Prime and Vimeo on demand. So वो अवेलेबल है, आप जाइए वो मूवी देखिए, दैट इज वंडरफुल, and it is one of a kind of a documentary which gives the complete idea about tiger conservation and of course the tag of a man-eater which was given to Ustad. Okay, so I think Warren is also working with Frontier, Safari, where he has started doing the safari for their clients, and I would say he is also joining people on safari, and we'll definitely talk about this in our later section. But yeah, right now I'm just giving this heads up that okay, Warren is available for safari as well. So yeah, that is one of his new domain, I would say. He is stepping into, so far he was doing safari on his own, now maybe with some other folks as well. So yeah, that's all I wanted to tell and I wanted to explain. So okay, great. So I'll quickly start this podcast with some of the questions where I would like to know. Let's say I would like to start with one of the point that okay, I would like to understand your experience of filming, producing, and releasing Tiger 24. Just before you start answering, let me just put that up in Hindi as well. Guys, Warren ने जो मूवी प्रोड्यूस करी थी टाइगर 24, मैं इनसे इनके मूवी का एक्सपीरियंस जानना चाहता हूं जो इन्होंने क्रिएट करी, फिल्म करी, बिकॉज इनको जा जाके फिल्म करना पड़ता था, एंड उसका एक्सपीरियंस कैसा रहा, साथ में इनको प्रोड्यूस भी करना था, डायरेक्ट भी करना था. ही हैज डन ऑल दैट एडिटिंग एज वेल. सो what is his experience? So, Warren, over to you. I mean, we would like to know your experience with Tiger 24.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say. I'll try to summarize. I mean, I just wanted to make a wildlife documentary, and so obviously in the beginning you have to find a subject animal. So I was told to follow a female with cubs because those make for the best documentaries, and that's what I was looking for. And actually, T17 Sundari
Mm-hmm.
made some kills right by my Jeep. She actually used my Jeep in Ranthambore, which happens sometimes because they've adapted to Jeeps. And I said, okay, maybe it's her. But then I saw this young male, and it turned out to be T24. He was sitting in the water. You've seen the documentary, the shot where he's looking right at me. And that's me with a handheld camera just looking at him. And I felt, who's this guy? Is a connection. And then I was told, oh, maybe he's killed somebody. And I was like, oh, really? And they said, don't follow him because he's a male. And, you know, males have massive territories. And he was the new dominant male, which means they're even expanding their territories further. So it's basically harder to locate. And that's something you have to keep in mind when you're making a documentary. Like, you know, it costs money to go to the Jeep every day with these cameras. So are you going to see your subject or not? And I just decided I wanted to do it. And I felt like there was, I guess, a connection, and I felt drawn to him. And it wasn't really completely logical. You know, it was somewhat emotional. I just felt like I'll take a chance. And I remember one of my camera operators would always say, "This is a time waste tiger hair," you know, because he would always be difficult to find, or he'd just be sleeping, right?
Okay.
And yeah, and then some other people were like, "Well, he's killing people in between your safaris. What are you doing?" And I just wanted to follow him. And then, obviously, 3 years into it, in 2015, he was accused of killing a fourth person in his territory.
अरे बारह में चाचा की ड्यूटी बेरियल पे है और 8 साल 10 साल से बेरियल पे है किसके आदेश से गया वो बताओ
And it became a big deal. And there was an activist, Chandrabal Singh, who took it to the High Court. Then it went to the Supreme Court. The Forest Department was very involved. It became big news. There were billboards erected, and India Today story, India Today, you know, on the news. And it became like the biggest topic for tigers in India, and it divided a nation around it. It also divided the central government body, the NTCA, with the state government, you know, in the way you determine a man-eater and the way you do go about conservation. And then I started to realize that now I actually have the responsibility to make this film because I'm the only person in the world with the professional 4K footage of Tiger 24. There must have been like cell phones or something like that. And so I said, okay, well, now I have to really make this documentary. And this was now 3 years into it. I thought I'd finish it in another year or two, so 5 years. It took me 7 more years to really finish it because there was so much additional story following the cases. The editing process was very, very difficult. I got into a deal with a couple of companies here in Hollywood that you know, we started well, but then we broke up because of creative differences. So that kind of put a major financial burden on me. And so I started doing things on my own, which slowed the process down. And if anyone, you know, wants to make a film where you believe the quality is good enough to get on a major streaming service like Amazon Prime or Netflix or, you know, Hulu or one of these services, you need to have everything clear legally, which people don't understand. You know, like I had to go back to a lot of people and say, please sign this document that I can use this footage, you know, because they'll be like, oh yeah, you can use it. No. I said, I need the permission. Otherwise I'll not be able to sell this. I won't get insurance for my film. So
Right.
a lot of the stuff just became like legal process, clearances, things like that. And then I also took a little more time in the release because, as you know, I chose to do a theatrical release
Right.
before I went on a digital streaming service because I felt like this film, I mean, for a few reasons. I mean, one is I wanted it because most filmmakers do, and I felt like, hey, my shots are great, and I want people to see this on the big screen, and I have some degree of control in a theater. Because at home, you know, they're on their phone or doing, I don't know what they're doing at home, how their TV is set or whatever. But I also felt, in particular in India, we had a theatrical in the US too, but in particular in India, I felt like it's important for the national animal to deserve this kind of a release, and so I was lucky enough to partner with AA Films, Anil Tadani's company that released it. I believe you went to the Delhi show. I remember seeing your review with the nice seats and all that stuff, in one of those, I think PVR or something, right?
Yeah.
And so I felt like, from my understanding, it's the first time there's been a feature wildlife documentary in theaters in India, and I felt like that's something important, and maybe we can get more of that happening in the future, and maybe next time around it'll be more commercially viable.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Did I answer the question? I
Yeah,
kind
I
of went
mean,
in a few places.
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
it did answer. But again, I would like to ask one more thing into this. What did you
Sure.
enjoy most out of all these things? Did you enjoy filming? Did you enjoy editing? Or did you enjoy like producing? Producing, I don't think so anybody would enjoy. But yeah, I mean, what was
I
your
mean,
favorite?
there's yeah. So in the beginning, when I first saw that shot of him in the water, I was like, wow, this is an amazing shot. Like that's what I was like, I was really into my shot, the vanity of a filmmaker and their shots, which all of us, go through this with wildlife. We got the shot, we got him on the kill or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And then later on, like in the Feb 2015 schedule, I had an incredible schedule with T24. And honestly, I have to thank my mother for it, because I was filming Bamera, and I just did I think 100 days or something with Bamera, and I was done. And then she was like, "Well, you're here in India before you go back to Los Angeles. Why don't you just go check on T24?" So I was like, "Okay," and I was like not expecting, I was like, "Okay, let me go," and I went, and the footage we got on that particular schedule was incredible, because that was the schedule where I had the pilgrims walking to the Shiva temple. That's the schedule where the
Yeah.
Red Bull from the village enters into the core area and gets killed by Noor, and then T24 eats. And that's that shot, that opening shot, like that happened on that schedule. That's also the schedule where a sambar deer was killed by a leopard. Then T24 stole it from this leopard, and then I had an area. It's a non-tourism zone. I had special permission to film there, and it was just me and T24 and Noor and his cubs, and the behavior was great because I could be way back, like 50 meters back, and still just put a zoom lens and record this behavior. And it was amazing for me to have that scheduled. So I feel like I enjoyed that. I did enjoy the editing process, but the editing process is you edit and you sit on your own, you think it's good, right? Then you show it to someone you trust, and they're kind of like not that into. You're like, oh, it's not that good, and then you're totally destroyed. You have to say, okay, this is not working, right? And you kind of know within seconds of showing it to someone else, you know what's wrong with it, like because you just their presence tells you what's wrong. So that the editing process was enjoyable. The score process was really good. I had two composers on this, Krang from Belgium and Mel Elias from Los Angeles, and that process was good, but also trying, because sometimes you get it right on, then some days you're just like, no, you're not quite doing it, and then you're driving the composer crazy. And a lot of filmmaking, I've realized, is very humbling, like, because everyone sees me as the director producer, like I'm in charge. But the truth is, most of the time I'm pleading with people, and I'm begging them to please do it, and to please put up with my need to get it right, and begging activists, can I please come and talk to you? And a lot of them were really nice, don't get me wrong, but some of them were tough on me, to get the interview and come at a different time. And you see your life kind of like passing you by, and you're like, what am I doing? I'm making this film. And I mean, one of our colleagues, Dhruv, can tell you, like, till the very end with the India release, I was just like dealing with the film board and making their changes the night before it was released. So I didn't sleep all night. And was it worth it? I mean, I think so in the end, but a lot of time has passed as well,
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do understand, and I can feel that, because when I go into jungle with the camera now, I have all that kind of feelings as well, that okay, I'm shooting this now, I need to go back and take that home and take that pressure to edit, and what kind of
Yeah.
shots I'm going to do, or what I can do with all those things. So yeah, I really can understand that particular thing. So yeah,
But
thanks
you
again.
guys' shots are getting great. I think I saw about 5-6 minutes of your friend's video, and the quality is. I mean, when I started, 4K was a big deal.
Exactly.
Now it's like everyone has 4K on their phone or something. So but the quality is really improving. So I think now the distinction is going to be in the storytelling, because I think everyone has tools that are pretty available.
Exactly.
But yeah, but we talked about reality versus
Of course. Truth.
what a movie is being enhancing or whatever. So yeah.
Uh, of course, yeah. So, yeah, of course. I mean, reality and truth. This is different, and then we'll definitely talk about that in coming
Yeah.
section. But yeah, filming and doing all that is amazing thing. I can relate to it. So yeah, let me just move this further. And from Tiger 24, I mean, I just get a hint because Tiger 24 movie was like came into a limelight because of that tag of a man eater, right? So I want to take this step further to ask you that what do you think of, or what are your opinion about a conflict tiger or a man eater, I would say. And then what do you feel is the best way for the conservation of these tigers? Because once these tigers remains, we'll be able to conserve the, I would say, the complete ecology, because they are at the top of the food chain. If they are disturbed, entire food chain will get disturbed, right? So yeah,
Hmm.
your opinion.
I mean, I think well, first, I think it's good to define what a man-eating tiger is, right?
Right.
And so right now we obviously have a reduced population of tigers compared to what was historically present. And
Mm-hmm.
so if when you reduce any population of species, you have less variance in the species. You have less extremes at both ends because you have a less ability to have extremes. So the extreme man-eaters of killing like 100, 200 people don't really exist anymore, because one, we don't have that kind of variance, and secondly, there's more control now. They'll just kill them right away, or move them, or tranquilize them, put them into a zoo. So I think we don't really have like man eaters of Kumau and Champawat tigers. Like, we don't have that anymore. I mean, if we do, that would be very sensational and very scary.
Yeah.
What we do have now basically is tigers that are, for the most part, dealing with people invading their territories, or where there's not a proper buffer.
Right.
Sometimes we have tigers leaving and living inside a villager's field, and
Mm-hmm.
then because of proximity, they're making kills, and then once they see that they can make an easy kill with the human, maybe they get a habit for it. Um, so the reasons are primarily because of lack of habitat, and I don't really think that these tigers are seeking out, human prey necessarily. I think if they had enough habitat and there was enough available prey base, that would not be happening.
Yeah.
Um, Cattle kills will still happen, and the reason I mention it in this perspective is generally when there's a cattle kill, you can also end up being a human kill later, because a human's trying to save the cattle or something like that. Um, how do we deal with it? We don't have a great solution. We are managing the situation. There's actually no solution. There's a management. So what happens is the department hopes that the public doesn't make a huge big deal, okay? And they don't know all the information. That's the reality, right? And they don't want to label a particular tiger, which is why there was some kind of vagary around T24. Like, they knew it was T24, but they didn't want to publicize it necessarily because they didn't want to isolate the animal. They're hoping they can pacify the villagers and manage the situation. And so there's the best balance between managing the villagers and also managing, the tigers.
Right.
So what I feel is the solution is relating to looking at a population of tigers in a given tiger reserve, and then by that trying to increase the available habitat if that's possible. And
Mm-hmm.
if not, and if not, there has to be one of two things. Other tigers could be shifted, which is very tricky because there is something like tiger society, so it does disrupt the tiger reserve. Or we have to manage the situation. A tiger leaves the core, you tranquilize them, you put them back in, you see if that works. You give them, if they're hurt, you give them live bait, see if they can, get strong again and start killing their own natural prey.
Right.
So I don't have a perfect answer for you. I think it's just sad that it's come to this, but I the blame is people in cities like us, okay, and our friends and our parents and whoever, like because we took away the available habitat, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
villagers who are living in proximity with critical tiger habitat, they need to be respected because they're the only ones that are still living there without building a huge, Taj Hotel or something or a huge
Right.
skyscraper. So that's why they're dealing with it. We don't have much perspective because the chances of a tiger coming here right now where you are like zero because we've
Yeah.
taken away the habitat, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand. But again, the question, or I would say the point which strike to my mind is, let's say for when we are talking of the conservation of tigers, uh, do you think the department, I mean, the action which the department is taking in terms of taking away these tigers which are being tagged with these human deaths, or I would say the responsibility of these human deaths, whether he has or she has done that in real or not, when they take away, like to take an example, recently Kajri was being removed recently, and she was in Tala zone, and Tala is like one of the core zones of Bandhavgarh, you
Yeah.
already know. So she has been recently removed, and probably right now she is in the one we have Bhopal. Does these kinds of steps do you think is important? Because taking away one tiger and saving the others in the name of that, what do you feel for that? What is your opinion on that particular angle?
I think it's an imperfect decision, and unfortunately, I don't know what the better decision is, right? So if you've got a problem animal, you've identified. I mean, the first question is, have we identified this is actually the problem animal or not? There's a process for that
Right.
laid up at the NTCA. There's a process that the state government will then use after that adopts some of the NTCA stuff, but they would know their tiger reserve better than the people in Delhi because they're right there, so they would know how to go about it. I can tell you, having worked with these departments and being there in Bandhavgarh, for example, I spent a lot of time there. They don't want to remove these tigers and put them in 1VR. That's not their priority. It reaches the point where they make a call, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, if we remove this tiger, we are probably going to decrease man-animal conflict for the rest of the year, and we're probably going to show the villagers that we care about them. I think that's what that action is about. Do
Mm-hmm.
they actually want to remove a wild tiger and put it in a zoo? No, they're not like people who are into that. But is it solving the situation? It's just putting a temporary band-aid on. And again, it's going to happen, right? So until the core gets bigger and until villagers, there's that fence in Bandhavgarh, they're jumping in, tigers jumping out. Yeah, it's like that's really the problem,
Yeah.
Until that's solved, this is going to keep happening. And uh, this removal of tigers is painful. It's a management decision. You tell me what the better solution is. Like I mean, there are enclosures inside Bandhavgarh. Okay, I
Right.
know where Bamera was kept, for example, and those
Mm-hmm.
are quote unquote wild enclosures. It's a
Mm-hmm.
huge enclosure in the wild, and you can even throw in wild prey. They could do that, but how many tigers are you going to put there? Will those tigers fight with each other?
Mm-hmm.
How does that preserve the species in the wild? Will that cause another male to come to the edge of that gate and fight, which will probably happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But all of these things need to be kept in mind. I think that this is the best they can do right now. And again, I mean, I think a program to maintain and increase core is the ultimate solution.
Right. So, I mean, creating, or I would say reducing this depleting forest cover is one of the major problem, which you rightly said. And if
Mm.
this can be saved, I think we can conserve not only tigers, but the entire ecology and all the animals within that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, but this is the sad reality where it happens that, okay, sometime forest department has to take a call, that okay, in the name of one tiger, at least they are able to save the entire species, where let's say for example in that zone particularly the remaining 10 tigers are there, so that at least the villagers should not come back and say that okay, all the tigers are man-eater or kind of that thing. And
Yeah.
of course they are trying to do their best, and they are not a kind of people where they are happy to put the tigers behind the bars and doing like that. And they are more learned, I would say, in their job, other than we, because we are sitting outside and we are talking about it, but they are the people who are on the ground and doing this thing day in and out. So I really accept their decision, and maybe whatever they are doing, they might be doing it with some kind of proper evidences where they have identified the tiger or tigress responsible for that, and then they are doing that. By the
I
way,
mean, they try their best.
yeah,
They
they
try
try
their
their best.
best. I mean, when I was following Bamera and Pandavgarh, I drove like for like 30 minutes and then I walked into some village. I don't even remember. I have the footage where there was a tiger that had come to take away their goats, took away one goat. The other goat was like bleeding from the neck with this medicine. And I was like, okay, was this Bamera? And they were like, well, he was a big tiger with a limp. And I'm like, oh, it's probably him. Did he have a cut in his nose? Like they didn't know for sure. But like identifying, like, because these guys at night, if people know anything about these tigers, like at night, there are a lot of them are coming out of the core. You
Right.
know, I mean, I'm not encouraging people to stand outside the core at night. Don't get me wrong, but I just know from watching pug marks,
Yeah.
I would go to a place, there's Thala, and then there's a village to cross the road, and
Hmm.
Bamera's pug marks were big, and also they were kind of twisted because he had some damage in his paw, so you could actually say, okay, that's Bamera. So we knew, okay, he's come from old sea route, non-tourism zone, over the road, crossed the road, and gone into the other side. I think it was Kitoli or something, one of
Yeah.
those villages. And so that's all happening at night, and then you don't know where he is at night, and then you have to find him, and then maybe he comes back the next day. So anyway, my point is it's not easy identifying them. I don't want people to tag all the tigers. I don't want video cameras all over the place, because then I feel like it's no longer a wild space. So I think they're making the best call they can. Of course, things should improve. Of course, we should control villagers entering the core. I mean, you go to Bandhavgarh, there's villagers jumping the fence. They're coming out with firewood. Department knows about it in some cases. Some cases they don't. They should be compensating those people. I worked with the RBS Foundation. I helped them make a film where they were trying to finance the encouragement of alternative crops like chilies and things like that, that say the nilgai and wild boar would not want to eat, to reduce man-animal conflict that way, to give these people a lot of work outside the core to keep them outside.
Hmm.
So, those kinds of movements is the focus. When you go on safari, telling your guests about the importance of maintaining the core, like respecting where they are, like they shouldn't be throwing things out of the Jeep, for example. They should be understanding that they're seeing some of the last of their kind, and
Yeah.
they're seeing wild spaces that are sacred to enter, that are like untouched, and should remain untouched in terms of like invasions and construction and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree to it. And yeah, of course, I just want to take this opportunity to explain this to our audience that NTCA has special guidelines for declaring a tiger as a man-eater. So there is a special document. I have explained and showed that document in my other videos as well. So I'm just placing a copy on that of this document on screen, that okay, if any tiger is attacking a man, or let's say if even though if he has killed a man, you cannot declare or tag that tiger as a man-eater. So there are some special parameters on the basis of which the NTCA will decide that whether the tiger is a man-eater. So for example, I mean, if tiger is purposely coming and stalking and killing a person, and repeatedly this thing is happening, then they start work into that direction, and there are some different parameters as well which they consider. So this is one thing. And as you said, for the conservation as well. So there are some specific guidelines which is being led by NTCA. So all these guidelines needs to be followed before commenting and talking on any of these aspects. So yeah, this was the point that which I just wanted to clarify to our audience.
Okay, so Warren, my next question is related to your future project. So, of course, I know you have filmed Bamera, and believe me, I mean, I have seen Bamera, and I know what a majestic. I mean, I should not call him as an animal because he was a kind of a legend in himself, I would say. So what a tiger he was, and I would love to see him on screen. I don't know what are your plans for it. So can you just share it with our audience that what is your plan for bringing Bamera on screen, as well as there is another movie on which you are working on, if I remember that correctly, I would say, and that is a horror movie. So can you please share some of your inside information related to Bamera and of course your other movie?
Yeah. I mean, so my future projects, I've got a few actually. So, I mean, Bamera is something that I've already shot. I don't know if it's going to be completed, when it'll be completed, but I have the footage actually sitting right to the left of me. There's about 40 terabytes there. So it's a lot of footage. I've got a horror film that I'm writing. And the horror film initially came out of my frustration with T24 because I was like, I have to do something commercial. So I started writing. I was like, if this is what they want, like, I'm going to give them something commercial, you know. But now I'm actually getting into it and starting to respect and understand and appreciate the horror genre. I've got a tennis documentary kind of in the works. I'm a huge fan of Stan Wawrinka, who's a Swiss tennis player, former world number 3, amazing backhand. People know him for that. So I'm kind of trying to get that going. And I've also got a thriller called Double Bite that I'm also writing that's sort of in the back burner because I think that script's going to require pretty large financing. So, but to answer your question, you wanted some clips. So I'll give you a couple of short clips of Bamera. I think you wanted me going into this non-tourism zone on the elephant and stuff like that. So I think I have that. I'll send that to you later today or tomorrow. But yeah, basically, I thought Bamera was going to be done before Tiger 24 because I was working on it first. Okay. And Bamera's story is incredible. Like you said, he's a legend in Bandhavgarh. His father, B2, was a legend as well. Yeah. And there really hasn't been that level of a male, you know, in Bandhavgarh. There's been females, the Rajbera and all these, you know, but so I love this story. I actually, you know, when you look at Bamera, you see a personality, right? And maybe I'm looking into it too much, but I feel like he's a nice guy. You know, he's a nice guy who's been through a lot. And I also noticed with Bamera, I don't know if you've had this experience, is sometimes when he used to walk and there was like deer everywhere, they froze. There was actually no calls. They were on alert, you know, but there was no calls. And he's like walking through all these ghost trees and like, you know, he's like a ghost himself, you know? And so it's kind of this incredible, you know, mystical character of a tiger. His story is really like a father-son kingdom story, you know, like he was the son of B2. He tried to challenge B2 to take over his territory, and B2, you know, completely beat the shit out of him, slashed his nose open, and he goes away as a young cub to this village, and the village is called Bamera, and that's why he gets his name. I actually have been to that village. And there's a sign that says Bamera, and I was trying to understand and feel like what he was when he was here. And there's a bunch of these lantana bushes, and some of them remember like a tiger that was there that would kill their cattle, and this was Bamera. And so he over there became like big and strong because even though he was a cub, at some point he realized, I'm a tiger, I'm hungry, and the only thing available is cattle. And so he became big and strong, killing these cattle. He comes back to Thala, and then now he challenges his father, B2, and he takes him out. And then now he is now the dominant male. But now in his own dominance, he populates the tiger reserve with his own offspring, creating new rivals. And they come after him as a group. And he fends them off because he's skilled, he's powerful. But in one of these fights, he gets his paw pad cut open. Okay. And this was sort of the beginning of the end for him because now he can't hunt his wild prey. Like I have a shot of him with a cheetal deer in the mouth where he's actually broken the head of the cheetal, so it looks like a giant rat. It's kind of scary looking, but that was one of the last documented shots of him with a wild kill. After that's all been cattle. Okay,
Okay.
I don't think anyone has anything with him with sambar cheetal, anything wild after that. Okay,
Okay.
so I have this shot of him coming down in Tala where I forget the area. It's like where there's a whole bunch, there's a hill, and it's an incredible shot. He comes down, he's like walking through all these dried leaves with this kill in his mouth. Um, but he started to then jump the fence, and that made this pointer even worse. And he would go over and then hang out in the village and kill cattle to
Mm-hmm.
survive. And he became a nuisance to the villagers. So this tiger that we look up to and see as this mystical figure became vermin to the villagers, and rightfully so, because they're trying to like graze their cattle or something, and you have this giant limping tiger coming in. It's like insane for them. And I
Right.
was right there actually when he killed or tried to kill a buffalo, and
Okay.
the 50 of these people came in with sticks. And I have an interview with one of the villagers when he was pissed off, and he in the moment he was like, "I feel like poisoning this tiger," and I understand because in that moment you're so upset. And
Mm-hmm.
later on, we called the department, we called the vets, we got treatment for his buffalo so his buffalo would survive, because sometimes they have to wait and go through a big process to get compensation. You have to
Mm-hmm.
prove it's a tiger and all these things. So he kept doing this, and ultimately there was a riot. They blocked the road. They're like, "We're done with this tiger. He's coming in too much. He's literally coming into our huts," and so they had to take him out, and so he had to be tranquilized,
Right.
and he had to be put into a big enclosure in the wild where they tried to revive him, give him
Mm-hmm.
food, etc., give him wild prey again, but it got infected, and he got septicemia. It went into his arm, and that's how he died. So
Mm-hmm.
I have this entire story of this footage, and the parts I don't have, I could probably animate, because I think this documentary could be different from Tiger 24 because it could be animated.
Right.
But to be totally honest, I mean, not to disappoint you or your audience, like I just don't have the financing right now for this, because I've run out of money. I haven't made the money I spent in Tiger 24 back. If I had made all that money back, I would consider doing it, even if I didn't make a profit. I'm still in the negative with Tiger 24 financially. I've had a lot of other benefits that are gratifying, emotional, and conservation, and other things like that. But um, that reason. The other reason is it's very hard for people to get behind these kinds of documentaries about one animal, trying to show the ground reality of conservation. What you see that gets financed relatively easier is like something like, when big beasts attack, or predators, or the killer or whatever, or like the a group of pride of lions or something like that. And then in those ones, they generally are using footage from different camera people from their archives. They're hiring a celebrity to do the voiceover. They have a promotional budget. They already know how they can put this on a channel. They already tell this channel, or the channel knows that they could recycle the footage for different cuts.
Different cut. Yeah.
And so it becomes, in my opinion, more of a product than a
Mm-hmm.
work of art,
Right.
because it's something that you could like slap something on, take something off, reuse it somewhere else. And I feel like a film like Tiger 24 is one piece about one animal, and should be like that. It shouldn't be recut or recreated or
Story.
recycled.
I would say story of one animal rather than showing four different animals in one frame, or I would say in one single shot. But nobody
Yeah.
knows, because people cannot relate to it, that okay, this is a different tiger or this is a different zone. So yeah, I think this is I mean, another point which I wanted to ask you, and of course this reality versus all this kind of celeb thing which is happening with all these tiger shots. So people are really not aware of that. So maybe once people will understand what is the difference between a kind of a documentary where you or the other people who create such documentaries on one particular animal, what is the importance of that, and how much efforts financially as well as mentally, physically does it take? Because number of safaris is not an easy task. When you go on multiple safaris, it asks for your energy, it asks your physical strength, because sitting in a jeep, taking all those bumpy rides all the time is not an easy task, because this thing cannot be
Mhm.
done in one or two or five safaris. This thing takes years. So I
Mhm.
really appreciate you on that. And but this is a sad reality that multiple different fake videos are in popular demand these days, and people give importance to those kind of shots rather than to the reality or the actual thing, which is the reality of that particular animal. So yeah, this
Mhm.
is painful, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think both the big players in this industry and also now a lot of wildlifers are doing it, because I'm seeing more and more on Instagram of the same forest jungle tone in the background. You clearly know it's not that that area. It's
Change.
some other bird tweeting in some pre-recorded thing, and they're all doing it now. And the average person is not aware of that. I'm seeing more and more doctoring of still images and videos, to the point where they're doing so many, like, creating these frames of, darkening certain areas and everything. And look, I do it too, to a degree, but there's a fine line when you start to, like, not represent reality. Like, for
Right.
example, in Tiger 24, if I did not have clean sound recording at a particular area, let's say it's Tupcon or Zone 3 or whatever, which very often happens, the Jeep is moving or whatever like
Mhm.
that, you can actually still hear my Jeep sounds. They're in there. Like, you can actually hear my camera fumble when I'm in the beginning. And I think about 15 minutes into the dock, you hear it, because I wanted to keep that real. But if
Mhm.
the sound is awful and would, like, upset an audience, I would actually go back to that zone and record jungle tone to
Mhm.
truly represent that place, because I felt like I have an ethical responsibility to tell the story right. And I
Right.
also feel like that's the most honest representation of the place. If you look at the color palette in Tiger 24, it looks beautiful, but it doesn't look gorgeous. Like, my colorist could have made it way more beautiful. And we actually made it a little more, we held back a bit to represent the story. Like, this is the truth.
Right.
This is a gritty story. I didn't want to go crazy. You see sometimes on social media, some photographers or videographers, like, overdoing the color to the point where when you actually go to the tiger reserve, you're like, I didn't know, like, they look black and white almost now, because I saw this crazy color online.
Right.
So what's wrong with that is, if you believe that a tiger film or a nature film has some responsibility towards conservation, you're more likely to achieve that responsibility if you represent the ground reality, and you're less likely to achieve it if you don't. So that's where it becomes important. If you
Mhm.
have a big show on, say, Nat Geo or wherever, like, Apple TV or something, where they're showing, like you pointed out, one tiger stalking, the second one chasing, the third one carrying the prey, and the fourth one eating, which happens all the time, by the way. What is wrong with that? They're telling their sequence. Well, what's wrong with it is they're unable to tell a very nuanced, detailed story, because they can only comment on the surface, because they've used multiple animals to tell this simpler story.
Right.
If you actually focused on the reality, you probably would not get that shot, or that
Yeah.
shot would not be as beautiful as you strung it together. Now you would have to comment on why. Well, you have to say, well, it's difficult to film this. Tigers only are successful like 1 in 20 times, sometimes even less. And then
Mhm.
it's maybe less entertaining for an audience, but it would have a little more, I think, conservation message, because you're representing that reality.
Mhm.
So I think for now, what we're doing right now is making them aware that a lot of this is kind of pushed and hyped and faked. I think that is also, like, useful, so for people to know that maybe they shouldn't overdo it so much.
Right.
Yeah,
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 I believe, of course, the point which you said, what is wrong with that? I mean, in my opinion, I don't say that it is something wrong, but it does not represent the reality, because, see, it is not a piece of a cake what they are showing on the screen. It is not that easy that tiger just go and just launch an attack and just get that prey or something. I mean,
yeah.
reality, you already know that, and of course, our many of our audience, because they love the wildlife and the tiger, of course. So they know that, I mean, out of like maximum 10 or 15 kills, he might possibly get only one chance to get his prey. So
Yeah.
when they show that with that kind of, simplicity, or I would say, I will not say it's simplicity, but with that kind of show off thing that, okay, tiger is coming in that direction, and then launching an attack and catching it in one go and very easily, and he's the king of the jungle, then okay, it pass on a message that he's a goody goody thing, and he'll launch an attack and he will get everything. So it does
Yeah.
not represent the true reality of that particular animal. So what
Hmm.
behavior he carries actually in jungle. So it is not an easy life for a tiger, of course. And I was discussing this thing with one of my friend today only, that female tigress is carrying one of the most difficult job in this world, because she has to take care of her cubs. She has to take care of the male as well, that he does not come close to the cubs. Other males who are coming into that territory, she has to take those cubs and raise them for next 2 years, bring that food to them, feed herself, do everything. I mean, everything they are doing. But things when being are shown as a piece of cake on the screen does not represent to that level what we get to see in jungle. So yeah, I mean, of course, when people will learn slowly and steadily, I would say, through all these messages which I am trying to collate, and of course you are passing on, maybe we can try to create a difference, and try to create an audience or a base that, okay, for the upcoming of your project, and of course for another videos which will come, people will understand that
Yeah.
the reality.
I mean, I think it's up to the audience to want it,
Yeah.
right? So I think the way things are going with AI and stuff, you're going to be able to create digital tigers in the future, killing in all kinds of ways, and
Yeah.
we won't know what is reality and what's not. So there's probably going to be a group of audience members, I hope, that
Mhm.
want an quote unquote organic movie. You know how we want organic fruit or
Yeah.
whatever? They're gonna be like, hey, what, was this a real
Organic
event
would be
or
a one. Yeah.
yeah or not? And I think if you don't have that audience, then in a way you're saying indirectly, I don't care about having organic wild spaces anymore. I can just imagine them. And I think that's what we're actually talking about. Like right now, the technology and the level of skill of people is still not good enough to fully do it, but it's going to happen. So I think that some of the better photographers and videographers do what they can in camera, with the lenses, with their exposure, with their ISO, etc., and don't manipulate to such a point in post that it's unrealistic. Not because, as art, you can do whatever you want. If you want to make it black and white, do it, that's fine. But if you're trying to pretend this is real,
Mhm.
and you're trying to represent that to an audience, I think that's manipulative and could hurt conservation on some level.
Right. Yeah, of course, I completely agree with that thought. And yeah, I mean, I would like to take this step further into our discussion, because as I shared in the beginning, of course, when we are talking of tigers and safaris, I would like to share this thing with our audience, that you have collated and collaborated with Frontier Group, I would say, and people can go with safari. I mean, with you on safari. So, would you like to share some details about it to our audience, that how someone can go on
Yeah.
safari with you?
Well, I mean, so I get, especially after Tiger 24 came out, I was starting to get these DMs on Instagram of like, I want to go on safari with you. And
Okay.
like in the beginning, it was like, oh, great. And how, then I got to do this and book a lot of international guests, etc. But the process of like someone inquiring and then booking and payment and schedule and all that is just something I don't want to deal with, right? Because I'm a filmmaker and this is not my number one thing, is not taking people on safari, but I'm happy to do it in a limited way by appointment only. And so I partnered with a company called Frontier Tours, which is based in Delhi, and they're going to handle the booking stuff. So now if someone writes to me, like I redirect it to them. And yeah, so they came up with I think a tour for people to arrive in Delhi, see Jaipur, then come meet me in Ranthambore. And of course, we're gonna screen Tiger 24 the first night, talk about it, and whoever comes, I'm giving them a signed Blu-ray if they want it.
Mhm.
Some people don't have Blu-ray players, but the Blu-ray we mastered with Universal is great because I supervise the mastering. It has a bunch of extras on there as well. And then, yeah, they do 6 safaris with me. And then from there, they have the option to go back to home or go to the Taj Mahal. And so I like that Frontier is handling it because I'm not really a tour operator. So I want someone else doing that. But the safaris are different because, well, I mean, for one thing, like I really know Ranthambore better than most people. And when you come with me, what I've noticed in the few that I've done, people want me to take them to the areas where T-24 was, where things happen in the film, where even some of the kill sites were, which I can do because they're easy to locate. And also I like to impart a conservation message, and I think that's really important for tour operators to do, and for people to understand that ecotourism, responsible ecotourism, is part of conservation.
Right.
Because if you don't know, if you haven't been able to respect what you're saving, by taking the time to see it, by seeing how difficult it is for wild tigers to survive, to see the habitat that they're in, to understand that part of your fees for entering the park, all
Mhm.
these things also go into the economy there. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that people need to understand. I remind them of it when I'm there because if there are no tigers, this entire economy falls apart. So it's in the interest of the tourists, it's in the interest of the villagers, for the hotel owners, everyone to have tigers around. And again, it sort of comes back to, can you make the tourism responsible for an inviolate core? Can you make the tourism responsible for the preservation of tigers? Like how do you do that? And of
Right.
course, people are going to have a good time too. I'm definitely going to show them tigers, but in the few that I've done, it's been very easy to communicate this message,
Mhm.
and some of them have done some good things for tigers as well after that.
Of course. And will it be only limited to Ranthambore or any other tiger reserves as well?
Look, I can go to any tiger reserve, but people want me to take them to Ranthambore. So yeah, I love Bandhavgarh, I love Kanha.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm open to all that. But again, it's like when I can do it, it's not going to be year round. It'll just be limited and for certain groups. And yeah, if someone wants to do it, like please contact Frontier and Beyond, their website. They have some information up there, and I think you can click or something and get connected with them.
Sure, sure, sure. I think that's a wonderful way. So, of course, I'll put that tag into this video as well, so that at least people can easily get connected with them in case if they want to go on safari with you. So, yeah, that's wonderful, Warren. And I think, yeah, this was a great and very wonderful discussion. And maybe in future also we'll have some of these podcasts. And definitely, once you are coming to Delhi, I would love to meet with you, and we can have coffee together, and we can discuss on something which is coming ahead. So yeah, thank you so much. And would you like to pass on any ending note to our audience before we wrap up this call?
I'm happy. I'm really happy we did the call. It's great. It's great talking to you. And yeah, for sure. When I'm in Delhi or a tiger reserve, we should meet up. I think if audiences, if they haven't seen Tiger 24, I want to make sure they know it's available because I still get those messages. So in India, it's on Prime Video,
Video.
also on Vimeo on demand if you want the special edition with the extras.
Mm-hmm.
In the US, it's on Netflix, and actually in the US and Canada, it's on Netflix and all kinds of digital platforms. But the message I would say is, you know, when you preserve the tiger, you're preserving all species, including mankind, because when you preserve tigers have large territories, they're top
Right.
predators. So by definition, you're not preserving a large wild space, ideally inviolate. From
Mm-hmm.
there, you're preserving that ecosystem. There are trees in those tiger reserves that prevent soil erosion. There's water bodies inside there. There's a lot of ecosystem services that are happening.
Right.
There's also a cultural preservation. These tiger reserves have a lot of temples, etc., which I know is a little bit of a man-animal conflict issue, but there is a preservation of culture, as well. And when I've seen people with me see tigers, I mean, they sometimes cry because they're inspired by their beauty. And
Right.
so they look at them as they would a fine work of art. And
Right.
so if we have a future where we take away wild tigers, we're actually going to take away a piece of inspiration from the world. And so people need to understand that for all these reasons, we need to preserve the wild tiger, and we should have the wild tiger for generations to come.
Yeah, I still remember this line from Tiger 24 that if you are taking away tigers from the world, you are taking away an art of an inspiration or a piece of an inspiration. So yeah, I really loved it and it touched me to the core. And believe me, those who have not seen the tigers in the wild, I mean, believe me, there is no fun seeing a tiger in the captivity. You can definitely see and enjoy that. But yeah, once you see a tiger in the wild, that is something majestic. So you are definitely going to love, and maybe that can change your life as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Warren, with that particular note. And I really enjoyed talking to you. And I'll definitely connect with you, and we'll meet soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
bye.
Bye
Bye.
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 Bye.